Once upon a time, this the memory. It's like synergy. Life the hardest teacher y'all could ever get the master. Get a test first, and y'all get that lesson after. Steve's never stressing them G's. We're gonna tackle a topic today entitled "Breaking Free from a Narcissistic Dad." I know, a lot of people familiar with the term narcissist. I feel like lately it's been very trendy. People talk about narcissists, but a lot of times they might not necessarily know exactly what it all entails, what it looks like. And I think regardless if it's a mother, a father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, cousin, whoever it is, man, we all have different experiences. And y'all know me, I live it, I preach it, I teach it. I always try to give y'all 110% of me. So, what better way to get into this topic than to talk about the biggest narcissist I've ever known, which is my father, right? So on today's episode, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about a lot of different things that I experienced and how I was able to effectively navigate that. And with all of these episodes, man, any topic we talk about, the ultimate goal is to pay it forward, to try to help people, whether that be healing emotionally, mentally, spiritually, mind, body, and soul. So feel free to sound off down in the comments about y'all experiences with a narcissist, how y'all dealt with it, and so on, all right? So made a couple of notes here just to make sure I kind of hit everything that needed to be stated. So without further ado, story time, all right? Get your popcorn, pull up a chair. Story time. So for starters, I grew up in South Jamaica, Queens. Anybody that knows South Jamaica, Queens, especially in the 80s, right? That was coined the crack era. So it was a lot of violence, a lot of gangs, a lot of things going on within my community during that time period that was just, it was bad. It was very bad, A lot of hustlers made a lot of money from selling drugs and stuff like that, but there was a lot of homicides, a lot of killings. Growing up in the household pretty much was me, my mother, my brother, and my father, right? It was the four of us in that household. Interesting childhood growing up, had some good, had some bad, but nonetheless, just tried to keep the family unit functioning for the most part, like most people, right? So my mom, she was a teacher for the Board of Education. My father, he was in the Air Force. Until after he got out, he was unemployed for a little bit, and that was life. That was our family. That was our structure. Fast forward as time progresses. So one day, I don't know if you guys ever noticed, like inside of a kitchen where you got like those white panels, and sometimes like if water damage starts to seep in, it starts to get brown, that indicates that there's some type of damage. So we saw that happening in the kitchen, right? So my father says, hey, listen, I see there's some damage up there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Home Depot, I'm going to get a pipe so I can fix that, and I'll be right back. So we said, all right, cool, so be it. So he dipped out. I remember it like it was yesterday. He left out. 1 hour goes by, 2 hours, 3, 4, a whole day. Basically, we didn't see this guy, right? We had no idea where he was at, what was going on. My mother's worried about his safety. What's the situation? Nobody knows. So eventually, this guy makes his way back, right? He makes his way back home. He says, hey, I want to have a family meeting, talk to you guys. And he basically says in a nutshell, hey, you know what? I didn't go to Home Depot. Truth is, I've been having an affair. The woman I'm involved with, she got pregnant, and I went to the hospital for the birth of my son. So we didn't know any of this. We didn't know what was going on, right? This was news to us because, at least how it appeared, everything was fine. My mom, they were married, they were together, whatever. Me and my brother didn't know what was going on. So this was real crazy. It took us for a loop, And then to compound that, he basically told us he's leaving, right? He's out of here. He chucked the deuce and he left, and during that time period, that was very struggling, in terms of just in the household, because if you're in a relationship with somebody and they kind of just throw you for a loop like that, you're blindsided, my mom, like, she basically went into a depression at that time. So me and my brother, we were now in the position of, you guys got to grow up, right? And rather quickly, because you guys got to be the men of the household. You got to be there, not only physically as protectors, but you also got to be there emotionally, there to support your mom going through what she's going through. So that was a real dark time. I'll say that to say, like, it was a lot that that happened with that. He had left out. He was in Co-op City to stay there, and that's just what it was. And we was in South Jamaica, Queens. He kind of started like coming back around after some years, trying to kind of make his way back. But mind you, he's playing both sides. So it's not like he was 100% in South Jamaica, Queens with us in the trenches, right? He was back and forth, Co-op City, South Jamaica. My mother, then the other woman in his life. My mother, this is just what he did. He was double dipping consistently, and my mom, God bless her soul, even though she knew that, it wasn't 100%, she was guarded, but yet she still tried her best to try to see where this could go. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was a religious woman. She prayed a lot, and she believed basically in the construct of marriage, right? Like, death do us part. We're going to make this thing work. It has to work. I want us to be together. I want us to have a healthy relationship. So, dealing with the dynamics of this, going back and forth, and then something that happened within that as well as time progressed. My biological brother, he was diagnosed with bipolar schizophrenia. So if anybody's not too familiar with that, what that really looks like is that that's someone that's just wigging out mentally. They're not all the way there, 110%, trying their best every day just to get through the day, right? Because they're hearing voices, they're acting out, it's sporadic. Like, it's a tough space to be in. You know what I'm saying? So we're dealing with that dynamic. My brother wilding out, talking to himself, getting violent, fighting, calling the ambulance, EDP. If anybody's not familiar with that, that's emotionally disturbed person. So, in and out of the hospital, it was a lot. It was a lot going on. And my pops, he wasn't physically present. So he was really out of the loop. When he came, but he didn't really know what was going on, right? So dealing with that, going back and forth. And then in addition to that, you now throw in the mix that my mom down the road is diagnosed with breast cancer, right? So I'm putting all this together because I want y'all to follow me, what leads up to a couple of things. So my mom, at first initially, it was the size of a tennis ball, right? So they went in, they took it out. Surgery was a success. They said it's a success. We good, nothing to worry about, right? Like, everything's good, basically. And she was good for a while. I saw her regain her strength, regain her energy. Everything was all right. And then eventually the cancer came back with a vengeance. So when the cancer came back, it was crazy. You know what I'm saying? It was like very aggressive to the point where it's like it progressed to stage 4. And I remember going up to the hospital, seeing her, and she just fading. It's like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I'm trying to talk her through it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just kind of trying to talk her through it, like being positive, like, everything's gonna be all right. And then eventually, I remember just seeing like the flat lines in the hospital, and that was it. She passed away. She was gone. And it was rough, you know what I'm saying? Because trying to cope with your reality of someone who was always there for you and now they're gone, trying to understand like what life looks like moving forward, and the fact that my brother, he has mental health issues, so I'm trying to navigate that best I can, because at this point, I had moved out east. I purchased a home out in Long Island, so I really wasn't local like that. I was trying to go back and forth, so kind of figuring out what that's gonna look like, you know what I'm saying? So have the service for my mom, everything, rest in peace, God rest her soul. And trying to figure out, navigate what's going on with my brother. So eventually, as time progresses, my father says, I'm selling the house. So that house that he was referring to was a house that my brother, who's bipolar, schizophrenic, still lived in that house. And, you know, I'm like, all right, well, you could sell the house, you could get the money. Good for you, father, right? But what about my brother? Because that's a dynamic that's kind of sketchy, right? He's bipolar, he's schizophrenic. Really the only stability in his house, I mean, in his life at this point was that house. So if you sell the house, what's going to happen to him? It's like, I'm selling the house, cash transaction, right? Sells the house. So essentially my brother's homeless now on the street, who's bipolar, schizophrenic. He's, you know, after my mother passed, God rest her soul, you know, she left a little something for him, something for me as well, like trying to make sure that at least there was some type of generational wealth she could leave behind for her children. You know, to her credit, she did that. But, you know, the fact was my brother wasn't well, you know, and now he's homeless. So he's in and out of different hotels, motels, shelters, until I finally got the phone call that his dead body was found in a hotel in Queens. So at that point, I got that news, so I had to drive down to the morgue in Queens to identify my brother's dead body, and additionally, you know, had to go to the hotel he was at to try to get his belongings or whatever, and that was tough. You know what I'm saying? That was real tough. So within that, I'm like, all right, you know, I want to do something for his legacy, you know, do something for my dead brother. So I went to Queens Boulevard. I found a nice venue, paid cash for everything, took care of it. Reached out to my father and I said, hey, listen, you know, I got this venue, you know, essentially like gonna do this service for my brother. Not asking you for no money or nothing, just want you to show up, show your support, have a couple words for him. And essentially he tells me in a nutshell, I ain't going. I'm like, well, why you not gonna go? Oh, you know, your brother, I've been through a lot of stuff with him. Your mother's family, I'm sure they'll be there, and I don't want to deal with those people. And, you know, I'm on the phone, and I'm like, I can't believe that I'm actually talking to a grown adult who's verbalizing to me that he doesn't want to go to my dead brother's service because he holds a grudge against him for having a mental illness, not being well, and he don't like my mother's family. I couldn't believe what I'm hearing on this phone right now. Like, how old are you, and how irresponsible and how ignorant could you be at that age? I was really blown away. I couldn't believe it. So I go back and forth with him. I challenged him because that was unacceptable. It's like, that's still your son at the end of the day, right? And I'm not asking you for anything but just to come and have some words. So we went back and forth to the point where eventually, you know, grudgingly, he agreed to show up, you know, so he came. But, you know, narcissists are funny because a lot of times they'll do things not because they know it's the right thing to do. It's all about them. So they'll do things for the appearance, right? Because narcissists have a grandiose sense of self. They want you to look up to them. They want to be viewed as so cool, and they can never be wrong. Right, getting a narcissist to admit that they're wrong is like, you know, it's like the hardest thing in the world. Like, seriously, like it's never gonna happen. So I think for him, it was more about saving face. Like, how could this thing happen and you're not there? So, you know, grudgingly he came, right, and that was that. And oh wait, there's something I have to say. I gotta backtrack, right? So let me go back a little bit. Now, before my mother passed away, because this is important. So before she passed away, and this is, you know, years before she got the breast cancer, a letter came to our house in South Jamaica, Queens, right? And I never forget, because she called me up, she called me Kylie. So she said, Kylie, you're never gonna believe it, right? She called me Boop, you're never gonna believe it, right? Never gonna believe it. I'm like, what happened? She's like, a letter came to the house, and it's for a property in Brewster, New York. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, for Brewster, New York? Well, what's up with this house? Like, cause we in the hood, we in the trenches, right? We we in South Jamaica, Queens. So with the wolves, right? I'm a wolf myself, so it's all good. But I'm like, that's what we're used to at the time. So I'm like, well, who's this house for? Who's the Brewster house for? And she's like, well, I think that he bought this house for your half brother and his mother. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, why would somebody purchase a house while their family is in the middle of the hood, living there, but yet they're going to put other people into a house, right? A nicer house at that. Like, it just didn't make any sense. So my mother couldn't believe it. She was like, nah, he can't be this deceptive. I got to see for myself. So I was like, well, what you going to do? She says, I'm going to drive up to Brewster to see. And she drove up there, and she saw for herself that her husband had purchased a whole nother house and property where my half brother and his mother were able to live, but she couldn't live there, and we were living basically in South Jamaica, Queens, and it was jacked up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was jacked up. Like, the residence at the time was not good. It was just like he basically just discarded us, just threw us away and just wanted to continue doing what he wanted to do. But that's what narcissists do, right? You can't expect them to have empathy or emotion for others because they're just that cold, right? That's just how it is. So, we found out about the top secret house purchase or whatever back then. That really hurt my mother, but still trying to be the bigger person. She looked past it. He's still double dipping. He's going to South Jamaica. He's going to Brewster, South Jamaica, Brewster, just all over. You know what I'm saying? So time goes by, right? Because we going back fast forward now. My mom passed away from breast cancer. My brother's dead body was found in a hotel. And my father just did a lot of mean, nasty, mean-spirited things throughout the years, right? But I had a daughter, and, for the sake of my daughter, I wanted there to be a relationship with her and him because I felt that was important, because given that our original family unit was destroyed, right? Well, he destroyed it initially with his actions, but then it's like, due to the passing of my mother, due to the passing of my brother, we were the only two left from that unit. So I really made it a point to try to be a good person and still allow him to have a relationship with my daughter. I mean, I really could have just said, you know what? You're so nasty, you're so malicious, you do a lot of deceptive things and you lie. I don't even want you around my daughter. But I took the high road, right? So, I tried my best to still be cordial. I think sometimes people mistake your kindness for weakness. Just because you don't constantly regurgitate all the negativity that they do, just because you don't always address their bad behavior, they take it for weakness. So in his mind, I think that he probably felt that all the negative things he did was okay. No, it wasn't that they were okay. I was just being a bigger man, right? And certain principles that I stand on is because I'm being the bigger person, right? And sometimes you have to do that with narcissists, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So, calls me up, and he's telling me how, he says, I need your help. I said, okay, not being mean or being nasty. He says, I'm basically in the process of some legal lawsuit, and it's affecting my financial stability. He's just doing a lot of verbal judo, you know what I'm saying a whole lot of nothing. So I was like, all right, so out of all of that, what is it that you need from me? He's like, well, I need to borrow the $20,000. I'll pay it back as soon as I close on my house. This is important, y'all. Oh, now he was trying some type of emotional manipulation, because he's like, oh, I'll give it back to you, and I'm sorry, son, it's your fault, I apologize. Well, not even. He didn't even apologize. Let me take that back, right? He didn't apologize. He just said, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you the 300%. I'll make it right. Because narcissists never apologize. They're never wrong. They're always going to gaslight you to think that you don't remember things correctly, and so on and so on. But we'll get into that. So he says he's going to pay me back. And guess what happened, y'all? 3 years go by. 3 years go by. Hasn't paid back anything, right? Doesn't even mention it or try to even make good on it. Because like I said, it's not about the money. It's about the principle at this point, right? If you owe somebody something, and you should be responsible enough to have a conversation, have a dialogue about it. Hey, this is what it is. This is where we're at. No, nothing. So 3 years go by. And then he calls me up one day and he says, hey, can you take me to a procedure? I got to get a medical procedure done in Manhattan. Can you take me? Now, mind y'all, there's a lot of different moving parts and dynamics. So I need y'all to walk with me and follow me, right? So we're 3 years removed from you borrowing the money that you never paid back that you said you would, right? And number two, you call me up to ask me to take you to a medical procedure. But the thing is that, keep in mind, for people that don't know geographically New York, I live in Long Island, right? Long Island. He lives in Mount Vernon. Those places are not close to each other, right? He had the expectation for me to leave Long Island to go to Mount Vernon, to get him to go to the city, Manhattan, right? For his procedure, to take him back to Mount Vernon, to go back to Suffolk County. But all the while, look at the history that I've had with this narcissistic individual, right? All the while, look at all the back and forth, the things that he's done. So, and on top of that, I got a lot of obligations. My life is very, very, very busy. I own 2 companies, and there's a lot that comes with that, in addition to everything else I have going on. So I simply just did not have the time, right? So I said to him, I said, listen, I can't do it, but what about the young lady in your life? Would she be able to take you? So he says, oh, she came from Cali. She has a phobia of the city. She can't do it. I said, well, that's unfortunate. He says, but no, it's all right. I'm going to get a cab service, right? I said, okay, cool. As God is my witness, y'all, that's exactly how that happened, all right? Now, at this point, I see how he's moving. He's moving very funny. So, and it just seemed like he was consumed with money at this time, right? Kept talking about the lawsuit, I'm going to get millions of dollars, that, the Bible talks about, the love of money, the lust of money is like the root of all evil, right? And he clearly displayed those symptoms, right? He just kept talking about it. And talking about it so much to the point where it just became disgusting. Like, I'm gonna get this, I know I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna get so much money, I'm gonna buy a small island. That was his verbatim, right? He's gonna buy a small island. So he kept going off about it. So, he says all that stuff, he's talking in circles. So I took a step back. For me, I'm the type of person, like, I don't like materialistic people. I don't like egotistical people. I don't like narcissistic people. I don't like people that are full of themselves or people that talk down upon other people. And he embodied all of those things. So I was like, I'm taking a step back. You're not my cup of tea. Fair enough. I tell people all the time, it's not about the title, it's about the action. It could be your mother, it could be your father, your sister, your brother, your auntie, your uncle, your cousin, your friend. It's about their actions. Don't respect titles, respect actions. And when I see he was moving funny, I took a step back. So we hadn't spoke for maybe about 2 weeks. So the day of his surgery, y'all, the day of his procedure, I get an email at about 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning. And in this email, he proceeds to do what narcissists do. I need y'all to follow this, y'all. Buckle up y'all seatbelts, y'all. Classic Narcissism 101. Email comes through around 3-something a.m. and it's entitled Open Letter to My Son. First of all, who does that? You know what I'm saying? Like, who sends an email open letter to their son or their daughter? If anything, like, if I have something to say to my daughter, I'm gonna have a conversation with my daughter. I'm not going to send her an open letter via email. Like, that's off-putting within itself, right? And in this open letter, he proceeds to outline. Oh, he starts off by saying, I want us to revisit what family means. Follow me, y'all. I want us to revisit what family means and the importance of family. And, when you were younger, I helped you out with your college. And he proceeds to outline several things he did for me throughout the years as a father, or at least that's what I thought he was doing at the time when he did these actions. Because if I do things for my daughter, I do it because I'm her father, right? And I'm providing. He was essentially throwing everything that he felt were notable highlights that he did for me throughout the years to basically say, why couldn't I take him for his appointment? It was verbal throw up, y'all. And it was so disgusting because it was so blatant that you could see the psychological manipulation. So what do narcissists do? Well, first of all, they want to manipulate you because they need to be in power and control. So he knew the fact that he still hadn't paid me back the money, and I was cool as a cucumber. I wasn't stressing it. I wasn't pressing him, but it was the principle. But he felt convicted about it. So to try to create a smoke screen, and you don't really want to pay it back, but you have to. So now to try to make the odds in your favor and make yourself the victim, now you send this open letter with a bunch of manipulation. Oh, I apologize for the intrusion of asking you to take me to my appointment. You seemed very vexed with your tone. When I tell y'all this is classic narcissism 101, number one, my tone was as cool as a cucumber. Just like I'm on this podcast, we chopping it up. So he made this up in his mind, creating this situation. And then he wants to talk about family. But unfortunately for him, that was a big mistake on his part. Because what that did was, people say, I got time today. I had time that day. And what I did was I proceeded to respond to his message. And I wasn't disrespectful, but I was direct. I stand on principle. And I stand on convictions about things that are non-negotiable. Respect is non-negotiable. Family is non-negotiable. And integrity is non-negotiable. And unfortunately for him, throughout the years, he violated all of those principles. Respect, integrity, family. So I outlined for him on numerous occasions things that he did throughout the years that showed you don't care about family, you care about yourself. You're not about generational wealth, you're about generational self. Throughout the years, this is what you consistently have shown. You lie, steal, cheat. This is who you are as a person, right? So I emailed that to him, but I also texted to his phone. Not knowing that the woman in his life now, that she was in the hospital with him after his procedure, and he was in and out with the anesthesia, and she had his phone, and she received a text message. And we spoke. And she kept it real about a lot of things. She said, listen, I came here with my daughters. I had no idea that all of these lies were being told to me. My father told her that my half-brother, he alluded to the fact that my half-brother is actually my biological brother from my mother, Laura. And he never corrected her. He just allowed that lie to flourish. My father also told her how he hadn't been in a relationship since my mother passed, that he was always with her. But meanwhile, he was the king of infidelity. This guy would make Eric Benet look like a church boy, what Eric Benet did to Hallie. You know what I'm saying? He also told this woman that he purchased the property in Brewster for myself, my mother, and my brother, and how we lived in there with my biological brother from the same mother. and how he took my mother up there and gave her the keys to the house. It was so many lies. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like, you know, and then I found out on the tail end of all of that how he had told another lie to my half brother and his mother, that he didn't even mention the new soulmate that he found, the new girlfriend he's with now. He basically was telling everyone that he's going to live with my uncle. So when he moved out, they thought that he was going to live with the uncle. It's so many lies that the lies have lies. And, you know, when I challenged him, he didn't like it. So we ended up going back and forth. So there was a bunch of text messages back and forth where I'm holding him accountable. And that's one thing about narcissists. They don't like when you hold them accountable, right? You make them see themselves in their negative behaviors that they do and all their multiple lies throughout the years. The lies got lies, right? They don't like that. They get uncomfortable. But you got to do it. It's mandatory, right? Don't let nobody play with you. You know what I'm saying? And he realized he can't play with me. I'm not for play. So what ended up happening was, you know, he comes with some ignorant text and he's like, you know, either you want my help or you don't. I'm moving on. And I basically outlined for him, listen, all the things that you did, you don't take accountability, you don't take responsibility. And his response was, oh, well, when you finish when you finish in your darkness, I'll leave the light on. And my response to that, that I gave him essentially was, sir, you are and have always been the darkness. Be blessed. Pretty much. That's where we left off with it. So, you know, to date, what I've learned, and I say all this to say because, you know, this I can't touch on everything within this time span because it's just too much information. And we're probably definitely gonna have to do a part 2. Yeah, I know we're gonna have to do a part 2 because this is in depth. But, you know, one thing that I will say, because, you know, dealing with narcissists, they are manipulators. They try to control people. They don't take accountability. You know, they're never wrong, but everyone else is always wrong. So, you know, what I will say is this, in closing, right? Because a lot of bad things happen with my father. And, you know, what I realize is a lot of people go through similar things. And for whatever reason, people might stay, whether it's intimate relationships, whether it's parental, maybe in the same household. For me, you know, I'm all about generational wealth, not, you know, tearing down. Like, I'm all about building. One thing I realized with people like my father, they don't take accountability, nor do they take ownership, right? So everyone else is always the problem. So I think the reality is that for people like him, it's important that if they don't take accountability, you got to cut them off, like straight up, you know? And I'll say this much in closing to my father, you chose to write that open letter as if that was a one-up. I don't know what made you decide to go down that road, but ultimately, that was the most ignorant thing you could have done, because we don't get brownie points for being a parent. Things that we do for our children don't ask to be here. They are our responsibility, and as a result of that, we do things out of love. But it is clear, being a narcissist, you didn't do those things out of love. You did it so you can weaponize it to think that it's a business transaction. You send emails at 3 a.m. like this is a business transaction. You talk as if this is a business transaction. And it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, you know. And what I will say to you is, at some point, for your soul, right, and your life and your karma and your energy, you need to take accountability. And if you don't want to be honest with anyone else, be honest with yourself. You continue to lie to everyone. You lied to my mother, you lied to my brother, you lied to me, lie to my half-brother, lie to his mother, you lie in your current relationship, and you continue to lie to everyone. It's time to be honest. Be honest with yourself, take accountability, stop tarnishing my mother's legacy, you know, stop telling that narrative you have about her, and I'll stop telling the truth about you. It's time for accountability. All right? And for anybody watching this podcast, like I said, shout out to y'all. If y'all had experiences with a narcissist, sound off below. And like I said, this doesn't even scratch the surface. This is the crazy thing. Like the stuff I spoke about, like real talk, this ain't even all of it. This is just a piece. So, we definitely probably gonna have to do a part 2, part 3, whatever. But big shout out to y'all. If you survived the narcissist, kudos to you. Much love as always, and until next time.